The elevator doors opened to the top floor of the coal tower, and the sound of clicking heels echoed through the marble hall. Julia Cole, the youngest female CEO in the company's history, moved with her usual precision, calm voice, and unreadable face. Every employee who passed her straightened their posture. She was known for perfection and feared for her silence. She built her empire without help, without family, and without rest. She often told herself loneliness was just another kind of focus. But that morning, something about the air felt heavier. Outside the building, the city was still waking, rain lingering from the night before. Julia sat behind her glass desk reviewing reports when her assistant knocked softly and said, "There's a little girl waiting in the lobby, says she needs to see you, Julia." "Found a child here at this hour," her assistant added. "She refuses to leave. Said it's important." Julia sighed. "Fine, send her in." The girl couldn't have been older than 8, wearing a faded yellow raincoat, her shoes damp from the street. She clutched a small bag against her chest, eyes wide with nervous determination. Julia leaned back, curious. "What's your name, sweetie?" the girl said softly. "Lily." Julia raised an eyebrow and, "What brings you here?" Lily looked down, then back up with surprising courage. "I need your help just for one day." Julia blinked. "I'm not sure I understand." The girl's voice shook, but she didn't stop. "I need you to be my mom, just for today, please." Julia froze, the pen slipping from her hand. "I think you're mistaken." Lily shook her head. "No, I'm not. I have proof." She opened her small bag and pulled out a necklace, a silver heart pendant with an engraving. Julia knew by heart. Her throat tightened. "Where did you get that?" she whispered. Lily smiled. "My real mom gave it to me and said if I ever got lost, I should find the woman with the same necklace." She pointed at Julia's neck and said, "Just like yours." Julia's breath caught as she touched the pendant, resting against her skin, identical down to the scratch across its edge. She whispered, "This necklace was given to me years ago by my sister, before she disappeared." Lily's eyes softened. "Mommy said her sister was the bravest woman she knew. She said if anything happened to her, I'd find you." Julia's vision blurred, her voice trembling. "What happened to your mother?" The girl's lips quivered. "She's gone car accident last week. The police said you're my only family." For a long time, Julia couldn't speak. The walls that had protected her for years cracked all at once. The little girl stood quietly holding that same necklace between her small fingers, saying, "Mommy said you'd understand." Julia slowly walked around her desk, knelt down and pulled the girl gently into her arms, whispering, "I didn't even know she had a child." Lily's tears fell against her shoulder. "I don't want a new mum. I just don't want to be alone." Julia closed her eyes and said neither. To outside, the city kept moving, cars, honking, lights flashing. But inside, that office time seemed to stop. The woman who had everything and felt nothing finally understood what it meant to lose something she didn't even know she had. Julia sat in her office long after the girl had fallen asleep on the leather couch. The silver necklaces lay side by side on the desk, one belonging to the woman who had built an empire, and the other to the little girl who had just broken through it. She stared at them in silence, the city lights below reflecting in the glass walls as her thoughts scattered like papers in a storm. She had lost touch with her sister years ago, after an argument about life choices. Julia wanted ambition. Her sister wanted peace. She left one night and never returned. Julia buried the pain under work promotions and perfection, until now, when the past had walked back through her door in the form of a child. When morning came, Julia covered Lily with her blazer and whispered to her assistant, "Cancel all my meetings today." The assistant froze but obeyed. Not daring to question what had happened, Julia carried the sleeping child to the company car and told the driver, "Take us to the address the police report listed." She wanted to see the house where her sister had lived, the life Julia never knew existed. The neighborhood was quiet, rows of small houses lined with gardens and faded fences. A woman next door recognized Lily immediately. She said, "You must be her aunt. Your sister talked about you, often said she hoped you'd find each other again." Julia's throat tightened as she looked at the small porch full of toys. She whispered she never called me the neighbor. Smiled sadly. She didn't want you to pity her. She wanted you to be proud. Inside the house, Julia found photo frames on every wall. her sister's smile frozen in time, always holding Lily in her arms. A stack of letters sat unopened on the table, all addressed to Julia. Cold Tower, downtown. She sat down shaking as she opened the first one. The handwriting was familiar and full of warmth. Dear Julia, if you're reading this, it means I never got the chance to say I forgave you. I understood you had to chase your dream, but I also hoped one day you'd remember that dreams mean nothing if you have no one to share them with. Tears blurred the ink as Julia read line after line of a sister who had never stopped loving her. In the last letter her sister had written, "If anything happens to me, please don't let Lily grow up alone. She deserves the world you worked so hard to build." Julia closed the letters, pressed them to her chest and whispered, "I'm so sorry." Lily woke up, rubbing her eyes. "Aunt Julia, are we home?" She looked around confused. Julia knelt beside her and said softly, "We're home now if you want it to be." Lily hesitated, then hugged her tightly, saying, "Mommy said you were her hero." Julia smiled through tears. Maybe she was mine. That night, they stayed in that small house together. Julia cooked for the first time in years, burning the first batch of pancakes and laughing when Lily teased, "You're worse than Mommy." They ate at the tiny table while rain began to fall outside, and for the first time, Julia didn't think about work or deadlines or being strong. She just thought about how full the silence felt with laughter in it. Before bed, Lily took Julia's hand and whispered, "Can I call you Mom just for tonight?" Julia's heart clenched. She nodded and said, "Only if I can call you my daughter forever." The little girl smiled, curling up beside her as the storm whispered against the window, and somewhere between the sound of rain and the beat of a small heart, Julia finally found the peace her sister had always wanted her to have. Days passed quietly after that night in the little house. The next morning, Julia woke before sunrise to the sound of Lily humming softly in the kitchen. The smell of burnt toast filled the air, and when she walked in, she found the girl proudly holding a tray with 2 uneven slices of bread and a glass of milk. Lily smiled wide breakfast in bed. "Aunt Julia. I mean, Mum." Julia felt her throat tighten. She crouched down and said, "Thank you, sweetheart. But next time, we'll cook together." Lily nodded cheerfully. "Deal, but only if you let me do the butter part." Julia took her to school that day, driving herself for once instead of letting the chauffeur do it. Lily held her hand tightly all the way through the parking lot. When they reached the classroom, Lily hesitated near the door looking at the other parents. Julia asked gently, "What's wrong?" Lily said quietly, "The teacher says I can write anyone's name on the form for parent contact. I don't know which name to use." Julia knelt so their eyes met and said, "Use the one that makes you feel safe." Lily smiled shyly, then wrote Mom Julia. Cold later that morning, Julia returned to her office and her staff stared in stunned silence. She was still wearing jeans. From the night before, her hair loose, her phone turned off. She gathered the executives in the boardroom and said, "From today, I'm changing how this company works. No more endless overtime. No more ignoring families. No one here will have to choose between success and love." They all looked at her as if she had transformed overnight, and maybe she had, because for the first time, Julia wasn't leading for numbers. She was leading for something real. When she picked Lily up from school that afternoon, the girl ran into her arms, shouting, "We learned about families today, and I said mine is small but perfect." Julia laughed and lifted her high into the air. Lily said, "Can we visit Mommy's garden?" Julia nodded. "Of course." At the cemetery, Lily placed wildflowers on the grave, her little fingers brushing against the cold stone. She whispered softly, "Mommy, I found Aunt Julia. She's nice, and she burns pancakes." Julia's heart ached, but she smiled, then said, "Your mum was amazing, Lily. I miss her." Every day Lily hugged her and whispered, "She said you'd take care of me," and she was right. That night, back at the house, Julia opened one of her sister's old journals. Inside were sketches of jewelry designs, each one more beautiful than the last. At the bottom of one page was a note that read, "One day I'll start a brand for Lily so she knows her mother built something too." Julia felt tears fall again, then smiled, whispering, "You will through me." Months later, Cole Designs launched a new division. Inspired by her sister's sketches, every piece carried the name Lily Grace. and part of the profit-funded scholarships for single mothers chasing second chances. During the launch event, Julia stood on stage holding Lily's hand, the crowd applauding. As she said, this company was built on ambition, but today it stands on love. The audience rose to their feet while Lily beamed up at her. After the event, Julia knelt and said, "You know you saved me, right?" Lily laughed. "No. You saved me, Mom." Julia kissed her forehead. "Maybe we saved each other." Years later, people spoke of Julia Cole as the CEO who turned power into compassion, but when anyone asked her what changed, she would smile and say, "A little girl with a silver necklace reminded me who I was." Years passed, and the Cole Tower no longer felt like the fortress it once had become. Julia filled the halls with light laughter and the gentle sound of life. The offices that had once echoed with the stiffness of meetings now felt human. She made a rule that no parent would ever miss their child's recital. No employee would be forced to stay away from home past dinner time. She had learned through pain that success meant nothing if it cost you the warmth of a hand to hold at the end of. The day Lily grew fast like a sunrise, bright and curious, always asking questions about everything. She spent afternoons in the design studio sketching beside her mother, who no longer hid behind titles. Julia taught her how to draw shapes and patterns, while Lily taught her how to laugh without holding back. One day Lily asked, "Do you think Mommy sees us from heaven?" Julia smiled gently. "I think she does, and I think she's proud of both of us." Every year on her sister's birthday they visited the small house where it had all started. It was no longer quiet, but filled with flowers, neighbors, and laughter. The woman next door often told Julia, "Your sister always said she wanted her home to stay full of life. I think you gave her that gift." Julia would smile softly. "I only kept the promise she left me." One spring afternoon, the company hosted an exhibition of the jewelry line named Lily Grace. The walls were covered with photos of the first designs drawn from her sister's journals. Journal pages filled with sketches were framed beside the finished pieces. Julia stood at the center of the hall, holding Lily's hand, as reporters took pictures. A journalist asked what inspired you to build this legacy. Julia answered simply, "Love, and the chance to start over." She looked at Lily and said, "And the courage of a little girl who walked into my office one rainy morning and changed my life forever." After the event, Julia and Lily returned home, still wearing the matching necklaces that had brought them together so long ago. Lily curled up on the couch and asked softly, "Do you ever miss your old life before me?" Julia thought for a moment, then said no. "I think my old life was just waiting for you to arrive." Lily smiled and whispered, "Mommy always said we find family when our hearts are ready to see it." Years later, when Lily went off to college, Julia stood at the doorway holding back tears. She said, "Remember, wherever you go, wear your necklace." Lily laughed, "I will, and I'll start. My own line one day, maybe call it Julia Hope." Julia smiled through tears. That's a beautiful name. As the door closed behind her, the house felt quiet, but not empty. Julia looked at the two necklaces shining in the sunlight, one old, one new, and whispered, "Thank you, sister, for leaving me your heart in the hands of your daughter." The city outside was alive with sound and life, but in that small moment, peace filled every corner of her home. And whenever people told her how lucky she was to have built such a beautiful empire, she would always smile and say luck had nothing to do with it. "I was found by love, disguised as a little girl with a silver necklace." If this story made you smile, share it with someone who needs a reminder that accidents can turn into beautiful beginnings.